Welcome back. So today we're going to finish up the LSA build as far as the long block. Next thing is going to be cam install, timing chain and gear set, then the oil pump, and then we're going to put some heads on and check for proper push rod length, just in case I need to order different push rods for the new Johnson lifters. But the first thing is I'm going to put the crankshaft position sensor in, torque it into 18 foot-pounds, and then I'll start the cam install. So we'll start with that.
Perfect.
So here's the milling pump that I'm going to be putting in, and it's part number 10355HV. It's the high volume, high pressure pump. It comes with a mid-range spring in it installed, but I'm going to change the spring out. If you want 8 to 10 pounds less oil pressure, you put in the yellow. If you want 8 to 10 pounds more, you put in the green. And I'm going to put in the green. Might as well put in the most high pressure one, because I'm probably going to end up spinning this to the moon eventually. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. I'm also going to open up the plate, top cover, mount it loosely to the block, and then I'm going to shim the pump to the crank. So I'm going to put the spring in first, torque it back into 106 inch-pounds, and then I'll take the plate off and mount it to the engine block. So I got the pump on, loosely bolted, and I have 4 feeler gauges, chunks of feeler gauges in there, just centering the stator around the pump housing. Doesn't really matter where the rotor is. These are all thou of an inch. So they're pretty tight in there, but I got 4 spots, like I said, centering that stator to the case. Now that that's centered, I'll torque up the pump bolts to 18 foot-pounds. Just about ready to put on the oil pan now, but I'm going to got a couple mods I need to do. First thing is I'm going to get rid of the filter bypass. This has to do with DOD, which my engine wasn't equipped with, but GM used this pan for a lot of different engines, including the LSA. The LSA does not have displacement on demand, DOD, but it still has the relief valve. Some guys said, oh, my ZL1 never had it. Mine's a 14, and mine does have it, but I do not have DOD. So some guys have put in high pressure, high volume pumps and seen no increase. And that's probably because of this bypassing. And this was just a little, like an umbrella shroud. So as it bypasses the oil back into the pan, you're gonna lose some oil pressure. So I'm gonna pull this out and install the plug that comes from Michigan Motorsports. And it's a oil pressure relief valve plug. So it comes with, we'll open her up here. I got the pan all cleaned up. I got the baffle out that I'm gonna have to torque back in place, but there's the plug, comes with a washer. I'm gonna put a little thread sealant on it, put her in place, torque her up. After that, I'm gonna put my baffle tray back in and torque it to spec. If I can remember which way it goes. It's gonna sit like that. Torque that to, you know, put a little blue Loctite on those bolts. Torque them in 106 inch-pounds. And then I'm gonna put the windage tray on the motor. And then this is another upgrade I have. And it is a LS oil pump girdle. Now, as most people know, the LSA and most LS only have one support bolt on the pump pickup tube. So this is going to straddle over top and actually utilize both mounting bolts in the oil pump. So that'll be when I go to put it on. But first I'm going to do the relief plug, put the baffle back in, torque it up, and then I'll go put on my windage tray. So the windage tray is on, just have the bolts started. So next thing is going to be putting the pickup tube to the oil pump and to the windage tray. This is my new oil pump girdle support, I guess you'd call it. And what that'll do is the factory oil pump or pickup's only got the one bolt. This is going to straddle it and use the second bolt hole in the oil pump. So I'll put that on. The other thing I need to do is choose the right O-ring. For the Melling oil pump, it says in the instructions, if your pump, it comes with two O-rings, a black and a green. If your pump comes with a red O-ring, your original pickup tube has a red O-ring, and this is red paint from the GM factory. It had a red O-ring, so I'm going to be using the green supplied O-ring. Bolting that down to 106 inch-pounds with a little Loctite, and then torquing all these to 28 foot-pounds as per ARP with ARP moly lube on it. And then the windage tray and the pump's going to be done, and then I'll move on to the oil pan next. Before I put on the oil pan, I'm going to install the rear seal and the rear cover, and the front seal and the front cover. This is a brand new GM one. I actually cracked this tiny little lip on my stock one, so had to buy a new front cover. It wasn't that bad. I think maybe 60 bucks or something like that. It wasn't terrible for GM. I have some seal driver kits that I bought as well, and front and rear cover alignment tool. So what this will do is it'll bolt to where the oil pan bolts, and it will true up the rear cover and the front cover installation so that there's no oil leaks, because it's really important on LS to make sure that your covers aren't too high or too low, so that you don't have any oil leaks when you install your oil pan. So first one, and this is what's called a reverse lip seal, and GM even marks it for the rear pan. Actually says this side out, so right here it's pretty hard to see, but on the lip it says this side out. So this is how it comes from GM, and it's got the support ring, so as you're pushing it in, it'll this will pop out when it goes onto the back of the crank. These are to be installed dry. It does, from what I've read, it doesn't hurt to put a little oil in here. So I'll just use a little bit of my favorite assembly lube. Make sure everything's nice and clean. Put that into place. Take my seal driver, push that down. Just like that. A couple little love taps. And it seals here on the back side. Bob's your uncle. That one. Next one, same thing. I use my seal driver for this as well. That's going in dry. Outside. Again. A little bit of oil or lube, just a tiny little bit. It's going in straight. Love taps. Make sure it's good all the way around. Beautiful. Now we'll go put these on the engine. Put the alignment plate on, like I said, to make sure that the gap up and down is nice and square on both of them, and then move over to the oil pan. Front cover's on. The alignment tool worked really nice. Glad I bought it. You could probably do this with a straight edge and a feeler gauge, but this is just way easier. I used it for the front and the back. It's mostly for the front, but I was using the straight edge of it for the back as well. And to double check, you want to make sure you have no more than 20 thousandths of an inch drop from your cover to your pan rail. So what you can do is you can take a straight edge and put in a feeler gauge here and make sure that you have no more than 20 thousandths of an inch, and there's not even close to 20 thou. So that's done. Next is going to be, I got to put my camshaft sensor in yet and harness, but I'll do that in a bit. So next will be put on the oil pan with the new gasket and torque that down. Next thing I'm going to do is install the lifters. These are the Johnson J, what are they? J2110R lifters. So they're damn good lifters. They're not cheap, but they should handle the RPM I'm spinning it to. I've just been soaking them in some oil. Some people say don't soak them, use assembly lube on the end. I've always soaked my lifters, so I'm gonna continue to always soak my lifters. So that's soaking. I'm gonna grab the new trays, the new GM trays, and put them in. I didn't go with the tie bar style. I just went with the tray style. So I'm gonna load up my new trays with new lifters, put them in. Then I'm going to put my dowel pins in the block. And then I'm going to put my new ARP studs in the heads. And I'm going to be putting a little bit of thread sealant on the main studs for the cylinder heads, because they do go into water jackets. So I don't want any leak or weepage going on there. So lifters and studs. Dowel pins, and then I'll be able to put the heads on. So studs are all in. On the cylinder heads, I'm just going to clean everything up. I already wiped down the cylinder head surfaces. An ARP, I talked to the ARP tech on the phone. Actually, I had a couple questions for him as far as which fasteners I should choose. And he said the biggest thing guys have problems with when they're torquing up cylinder heads is the surface that the washer sits on the cylinder head needs to be super clean, and that so here's the washer. He says this part needs to be, the knurled part needs to be super clean on the bolts to the cylinder head, and you only put moly lube on the threads and the top side and bottom side of the nut. So this side going to the cylinder head has to be super clean. He said brake clean it underneath the washer and the cylinder head. So that's dry. Threads are moly lubed. Top side is moly lubed, because what he's saying is guys are torquing it and it's pulling the threads out of the bolt, because this surface that hits the cylinder head just keeps slipping, and it just keeps applying torque and pulling the heads out of the block. So we're not going to have that happen. So I'm going to follow the instructions. Everything's nice and clean. And cylinder heads have been machined. There's the cylinder heads. These are my Lingenfelter ported heads. So I had them surfaced. They look awesome. All ready to go. So I will put on a set of brand new LSA, LS9 multi-layer steel gasket GM head gaskets and start torquing them down. Now comes the time to verify my push rod length. And the first thing I'm going to do is verify my intake. And to verify my intake, I need to put it on base circle. So to put the intake valve, the intake lobe on base circle, I need to rotate it. Rotate the engine over. I got a push rod in. These are my old push rods. I have it just pressed up against the lifter right now, so I'm just pushing on it until exhaust closes. Exhaust starts opening. So the exhaust just started opening. That means my intake's on base circle. I'm using my Comp Cam's push rod length checker. And it goes from 6.8 to 7.8. Starts at 6.8. For every rotation of this line, as you can see, kinda, that's 50thou of an inch. So you just rotate and count it. So I know, because I cheated and did this off camera, that I want well, we'll start with 10. We'll start with 7/300. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rotations. So I've just lengthened this 500 thousandths of an inch. So that'll give me a 7.300 length. And you just put her in against your lifter. You take your intake rocker and snug it down. So it's snug, and I have a little too much Not much, but a little, there's a little bit. So I'm going to set it up for 7.350. Okay, so that is now set for 7.3500. Screw this back on, and I should be at 0 lash there. And I can still slide it, but there's no play. So that's 0 lash. So that means my ideal push rod length, 0 lash is 7.350. Johnson Lifters is recommending 35 thou preload. So that would mean I need a push rod length of 7.350, but they also say plus or minus another 10,000ths of an inch, which would put my push rod on the high end at 7.395. And the stock ones are 7,400. So for 5,000ths of an inch, and looking at Brian Tooley's custom push rod lengths, to get, there is no 7.350 push rod. So the next, they offer 7.375, and then they go up to 7,400. So these are the 7,400. So just worked out with the shorter travel, but a shorter lifter, but I also decked everything, so it kind of shortened up the distance. I will be able to run the 7,400. I'm gonna go ahead and check. I actually already did check the exhaust, and it's the same. 7.350 is my 0 lash. If I add 45 thou, that gives me 7.395 push rod, so the 7,400s will work. So I'm gonna go ahead and install all my rockers, rolling them over, and I'm gonna put each one on base circle. I'm gonna put my intake on base circle. And then I'll torque it down to 22 foot-pounds. I'll put my exhaust on base circle, torque it down 22 foot-pounds, and do that for all the cylinders. So that's gonna take a minute, but then the valve train will be done. And I'm gonna lube everything up good with some assembly lube on both ends of the push rods and on the rockers and the valve stems and everything else. So I got the push rods in, and I'm gonna put the rockers on the exhaust just loosely. I put some, I'll actually put a little bit more on. Just a dab of lube on these for the rocker cups. So I'll snug up all the exhaust ones. And then on the intake rockers, I need to put some RV silicone on the threads, because these heads are ported. The bolt hole is actually exposed to the intake runner. So if you don't seal these threads with any silicone or anything, you can actually draw from your intake runner, oil through your thread into your intake, and you'll be sucking a bunch of oil into your intake and not knowing why. So I'm gonna snug down the exhaust, get my intake rockers ready with a little dab of silicone on each one and install it. And then I'm gonna start rolling them over on base circle and torquing them to 22 foot-pounds. So long block is pretty much done now. Just waiting on a couple of things like the camshaft position sensor. Still have to put on the harmonic dampener. Waiting on a couple little things like the oil filter bypass gasket that goes to the block. Got to pick that up at GM tomorrow. But other than that, she's just about ready to put in the car. So hopefully next video should be able to finish it and put it in the car and start her up for the first time and see how she sounds. So pretty excited about that. Looking forward to it. Finally hearing it running, seeing as it's spring and should be on the road driving here pretty quick. So anyhow, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.